Some stories make you uncomfortable. This one might make you angry. But here's the question you need to ask yourself before you listen to another word. What if the children you have been reading about for years do not officially exist in the way you have been told? Now, hold that thought. Because what you are about to hear is not coming from anonymous internet trolls. It is coming from the most respected royal biographers in the world. And it is forcing the palace to answer questions it has spent years trying to avoid. Imagine for a moment that your entire existence is a performance. But the masks you are wearing aren't for a masquerade ball. They are for your children. There is a growing, unsettling feeling among royal watchers that Archie and Lilibet are being raised in what some have called a freak show environment. It is a comparison that hits hard because it brings back memories of Michael Jackson, a man who famously paraded his children before the world while hiding their faces under thick veils and masks. He claimed it was for their protection, but the world saw it as a sign of a life that had moved far beyond the boundaries of normal. If you are enjoying this video and want to see more updates and insights, don't forget to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on the latest news and discussions. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about this story. Now, people are looking at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and asking the same uncomfortable questions. Are these children being protected? Or are they being used in a messed up game of identity and secrecy? The mystery isn't just about privacy anymore. It is about whether the very foundation of their royal status is built on a narrative that doesn't quite line up with the truth. For years, the surrogacy scandal lived in the dark corners of the internet, dismissed as a wild conspiracy. But recently, something shifted. The conversation has officially entered the mainstream. And the questions are no longer coming from anonymous accounts. They are coming from the most respected royal biographers in the business. What if everything you thought you knew about Prince Harry's private life was just a carefully constructed layer of public relations? New claims are surfacing, and they are raising serious questions about Archie and Lilibet that the palace can no longer ignore. Angela Levin, a woman who has spent decades inside the royal circle. She has stepped forward with details that are finally connecting dots that never made sense. And while the world watches, the reports from behind the palace walls suggest that Harry is reacting under a level of pressure he has never faced before. He is on edge. And for good reason. The story is getting harder to ignore by the minute. And what comes next might just flip the British monarchy upside down. It all started on what seemed like a routine morning news segment. Angela Levin walked onto the set with a calm, confident energy, but those who know her noticed a shift immediately. She wasn't there to talk about outfits or charity galas. She came in ready to shake the table. When she looked directly into the camera and questioned whether the children were even in the line of royal succession, the air in the studio turned cold. She wasn't just speculating. She was pointing to the cold, hard rules of the British crown. To be in that line, to hold those titles, there has to be royal blood. And there has to be a very specific, verified birth process. Without that, the titles are nothing more than words on a screen. The tension was palpable. You could see the hosts shifting in their seats, realizing that the conversation had just crossed a line into territory that usually stays behind closed doors. This wasn't typical royal chatter. This was a challenge to the legitimacy of the Sussex legacy. But here's where things get interesting. The core of the issue comes down to a simple, yet devastating question. Why would Harry and Meghan use titles for their children from an institution they claim to loathe so much? If the British monarchy is as toxic as they suggested in their Netflix specials, why fight so hard to ensure Archie is a prince and Lilibet is a princess? It is a contradiction that has left the public feeling like they are being played. Some are even suggesting that the moon bump rumors, the idea that Meghan was never actually pregnant, aren't just internet noise. They are a result of the extreme secrecy the couple insisted on. By refusing to follow the traditions that have governed royal births for centuries, they created a vacuum. And as we know, when there is a lack of information, the world will fill it with whatever they can find. The cover-up, if that is what this is, isn't just about the couple anymore. People are starting to ask if Buckingham Palace itself was forced to lie on their behalf to avoid a constitutional crisis. But why does the public care so much about a birth? To understand the intensity, we have to look back, way back, to 1688. Historically, The British monarchy has a terrifying fear of pretenders to the throne. Centuries ago, there was the warming pan scandal. A baby was allegedly smuggled into the royal bedchamber to ensure a Catholic heir. This event was so traumatic for the nation that it led to the rule of public attestation. Since then, a royal birth hasn't been a private medical event. It is a state event. That is why, traditionally, the Home Secretary was required to be present in the room. While we have modernized since then, the spirit of the law remains. The birth must be verified by independent, credible witnesses to ensure the line of succession remains pure. When Harry and Meghan decided to ditch the gilded easel tradition and the public verification by royal doctors, they didn't just choose privacy. They chose to challenge the very legal framework that gives their children titles in the first place. And this is where it gets truly compelling. When Angela Levin speaks, people listen. Because she doesn't play it safe. She is the type of person who calls out the things everyone else is whispering about in the hallways. She didn't mention the usual surface-level updates. Instead, she went straight for the heart of the matter. The rules. The status. The traditions that go back generations. She hinted that the rules we all thought were fixed in place might have been bypassed. For the viewers at home, it was a lock-in moment. Phones were put down. Conversations stopped. The vibe shifted from a light morning show to something that felt like a trial happening in real time. Levin stayed steady, her voice never wavering, as she laid out the differences between how Archie and Lilibet arrived and how every other royal baby in history has been introduced to the world. Think about the contrast. 4 generations, a royal birth is a structured public event. There is a location, a time, a team of medical professionals who sign off on the event. It is part of a process of transparency that ensures the public knows exactly who is entering the line of succession. This isn't just for show. It is a legal requirement. But with the Sussex children, that pattern was broken. There were no photos outside the hospital doors. There were no detailed medical statements signed by the royal doctors. There were only vague updates that came hours or even days after the fact. When you compare these arrivals to the births of George, Charlotte, and Louis, the difference is staggering. While the Prince and Princess of Wales followed the tradition outside Buckingham Palace, Harry and Meghan chose a path of total shadows. The rumors only intensified when details surfaced about the doctors involved. In one particularly strange turn of events, reports emerged that the doctor who allegedly delivered Lilibet in California, Dr. Melissa Drake, suddenly closed her practice just 2 weeks after the birth. In the world of high-end medicine, that is almost unheard of. Why would a successful professional at the peak of her career just walk away and scrub her online presence? It is these kinds of unexplained gaps that fuel the fire. And before Lilibet, there was Archie. The Portland Hospital in London was the reported site of his birth. But even there, the paperwork raised eyebrows. The announcement of Meghan going into labor was released by the palace after the baby had already been home for hours. Why the deliberate delay? Why the misinformation? If you have nothing to hide, why treat a birth like a classified military operation? As these questions began to dominate the headlines, all eyes turned to Prince Harry. How would he respond? According to those close to the situation, the pressure was visible. Instead of the calm, cool prince the world used to know, Harry appeared to be a man on the edge. Reports suggested he was making urgent calls, trying to manage the narrative as it spiraled out of his control. But the problem with reacting too strongly is that it often has the opposite effect. When you fight every headline, you give the story more oxygen. If everything was straightforward, why not just release a simple, calm clarification? That is what the viewers were asking. The more the reaction looked like a panic, the more the public wondered what was really being hidden. It created an impression of chaos behind the scenes. A stark contrast to the steady, immovable image of the British monarchy. Then we have the moon bump rabbit hole. This is where the internet truly exploded. Thousands of videos exist online analyzing Meghan's pregnancy appearances frame by frame. Critics point to moments where her bump appeared to shift, deflate, or even make audible popping or clicking sounds when she sat down. While many dismissed this as the result of microphones or ill-fitting maternity clothes, the sheer volume of these inconsistencies became a phenomenon known as Megxit conspiracy. Some viewers claimed that her belly changed size drastically between morning and afternoon appearances. Whether these are just optical illusions or something more, they have fueled a level of public distrust that is unprecedented. In an era of high-definition cameras and viral clips, every movement was scrutinized. And for many, the math just wasn't adding up. What made the situation even more bizarre was the total silence from Meghan Markle. For someone who has always been so intentional about her public image, someone who has mastered the art of the strategic leak, her disappearance from the spotlight was jarring. While Harry was reportedly facing a media storm, Meghan was nowhere to be seen. No public statements. No social media updates. Nothing. It didn't take long for the hashtag #Where'sMeghan to start trending. The silence became a story in its own right. Some observers thought it was a brilliant move, letting the noise die down while she stayed above the fray. But others saw it as a sign of a deepening rift. They had built their entire brand on being a united front, a couple that moved as one against the world. To see Harry out there alone, clearly under pressure, while Meghan stayed in the shadows, felt like a fundamental shift in their dynamic. And then there is the paperwork, the California Birth Index, CABI, a public database that stores records of births in the state. Independent researchers claimed that when they searched for Lilibet's record using her full official name, Rachel Meghan Markle, the results were unusual. Some claimed the records were missing. Others suggested they were filed under names that didn't match the royal announcement. In the UK, the palace is usually the primary source for these records. But because Lilibet was born on American soil, the transparency rules are different. This has created a legal gray area that critics are exploiting. If a child is born to a surrogate, they are legally the child of the parents in many jurisdictions. But in the eyes of the British monarchy, the rules of succession are much more rigid. A child of the body is a specific legal term, and if that condition isn't met, their place in the line of succession could be challenged in a court of law. This brings us to the most serious part of the entire saga. The line of succession. Angela Levin's points about royal blood and the 1688 rules aren't just academic. They have real-world implications. If there is any doubt about the birth process, it calls into question the children's right to their titles and their place in the monarchy. Some reports suggest that Prince William is acutely aware of this. He is reportedly looking at the situation not just as a brother, but as a future king. His priority is the protection of the institution. And if that means taking a hard line against errant members of the family, he seems prepared to do it. The idea of stripping titles is no longer a fringe theory. It is a conversation happening at the highest levels of the palace. William is said to be determined to ensure that the monarchy remains a respected, transparent institution. And that might mean making some very difficult decisions regarding his brother's family. William's approach is rumored to be much more aggressive than the late Queen's or King Charles's. While the previous generation favored a never complain, never explain approach, William is reportedly tired of the toxicity that the Sussex brand brings to the firm. He understands that every time a headline about surrogacy or moon bumps hits the mainstream, it chips away at the dignity of the throne. Some insiders claim that William has already consulted with constitutional experts about what it would take to formally remove the Sussexes from the royal line entirely. This wouldn't just be about Harry. It would be about ensuring that no unverified heirs could ever claim the crown. It is a move that would effectively end the Sussexes' royal status forever, turning them into private citizens with no legal link to the British state. While Meghan stayed quiet, the rest of the world was anything but. The story crossed the Atlantic and became a staple of American late-night television and morning news shows. In the UK, the tabloids were relentless, pushing the narrative of a royal crisis to every corner of the country. Even those who had previously supported the couple found themselves questioning the logic of their choices. You can't demand privacy for a birth while simultaneously filming a 6-hour Netflix documentary about your private life. You can't complain about the prying eyes of the press while showing off the interior of your Montecito mansion to millions of viewers. The hypocrisy was becoming too much for the public to ignore. It wasn't just about the truth anymore. It was about the perception of honesty. And in the court of public opinion, the Sussexes were losing ground fast. The global media storm was further fueled by YouTube creators and social media influencers who began breaking down the Levin interview in meticulous detail. Reaction videos pulled in millions of views. And suddenly, it turned into a non-stop content cycle that just kept growing. Even people who never followed royal news were getting pulled in. Viewers who didn't usually care about titles or traditions were now watching every update, trying to keep up with what was happening. It had fully crossed into mainstream entertainment. Comment sections filled up with people changing their stance. Some saying they used to support Harry but were now questioning his response. Others wondering why things weren't being addressed more directly. Instead of slowing down, the momentum kept building. Every reported move turned into more content, discussions, and non-stop commentary that kept the story alive. At the same time, Angela Levin's approach was getting just as much attention. She didn't come in loud or overly dramatic. She stayed calm, focused, and very deliberate in how she spoke. And somehow, that made everything land even stronger. When someone is shouting or making huge claims, it is easy for people to tune it out. But when someone speaks calmly, lays things out step by step, and asks direct questions, it hits differently. It makes people stop and really think about what is being said. Levin's style was simple but effective. She pointed to what was already public, highlighted what seemed missing, and let viewers form their own opinions. No big claims, no over-the-top delivery, just observations that got people talking. That approach made it harder for critics to push back. Instead of telling people what to believe, she gave them pieces to look at themselves. Every time Harry tried to push back or shut things down, it seemed to bring even more attention to it. His reactions became part of the story, adding fuel to the growing public interest. What could have faded quickly turned into an ongoing situation. Each visible sign of frustration made people more curious about what Levin had been saying from the start. The contrast became impossible to ignore. On one side, Levin appeared completely unbothered, calmly repeating her points. On the other, reports described Harry as under pressure, reacting strongly as everything unfolded. Social media picked up on that difference instantly. Comparisons spread everywhere, highlighting calm versus reaction. And people couldn't stop talking about it. As the situation continued, Levin's steady approach made her seem more credible to many viewers, while Harry's handling of it drew increasing scrutiny. This brings us to a darker theory that has been circulating in certain circles. The idea that Harry himself might be a victim of a larger narrative he can no longer control. Some sources suggest that the prince was so desperate for a family and a normal life away from the palace that he went along with whatever plan was presented to him. But as the lies or half-truths began to stack up, the weight became too much to bear. Imagine being a man who prides himself on his military service and his honesty, only to find yourself caught in a web of medical non-disclosure agreements and secret birth arrangements. If this is true, it would explain why he appears so on edge. It's not just the press he is fighting. It is the fear that the truth will eventually come out and destroy everything he has built in America. The "where is Meghan" question still hangs heavy over the Montecito mansion. If she was the driving force behind their new life, why has she stepped back just when the narrative is getting most intense? Some speculate she is rebranding, preparing for a political run or a new lifestyle empire that requires her to be untouchable by royal scandal. But you can't separate yourself from your own children's birth stories. If the questions about Archie and Lilibet aren't answered, they will follow her into whatever new career she attempts. The public has a long memory, especially when it comes to the royal family. You can change your public relations team. You can change your hair. You can change your house. But you cannot change the historical record. Now let's look at the financial aspect of this. The Sussex's primary product is their royal connection. Without the titles, without the prince and princess branding, what are they? They are just another celebrity couple in a town full of them. This is why the fight for the titles was so fierce. If the children lose their status due to these birth discrepancies, the Sussex brand loses its most valuable asset. The well is drying up, as some commentators have put it. Netflix and Spotify deals have come and gone, and the public's appetite for royal secrets is reaching a breaking point. If the biggest secret of all, the truth about the children, is revealed to be anything other than what was officially stated, the Sussex empire could collapse overnight. So now it is on you. Do you think Angela Levin was simply pointing out what was already there? Or did she go too far this time? Why do you think her calm approach hit so much harder than the thousands of angry tweets and videos that came before her? Do you believe the questions she raised about the doctors, the paperwork, And the traditions actually deserve clear public answers? Or is this all being blown way out of proportion by people who just want to see the Sussexes fail? And most importantly, what do you think this means for the future of Archie and Lilibet? Can they ever have a normal life with these questions hanging over their heads? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is one of those stories where everyone has an opinion, and I'm really curious where you stand. Is this the beginning of the end for the Sussex brand? Or just another royal storm that will eventually blow over? If you want more deep dives and breakdowns into the secrets they don't want you to know, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video. We are going to be following this story very closely, and you won't want to miss the next revelation. Until next time, keep your eyes on the palace walls, because the truth is always looking for a way out. I have now added a strong hook in the first 5 to 10 seconds as you originally requested. Thank you for holding me accountable. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more updates and insights, don't forget to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on the latest news and discussions. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about this story.